Good afternoon, evening, or morning, everybody. This is another episode of Rendezvous with Rico, and today, and for him, it's what 6 o'clock, 6:45 for you,
Certainly is 6:45.
and yes, it is evening for Owen, and so anyone in his time zone watching this, good evening. Uh, this is another episode of Rendezvous with Rico, and we're just gonna have a fun little chat about politics and whatever else we feel like talking about.
Indeed, we are. It's a pleasure to be on here, Dorico. Like, it's a fantastic opportunity, I think, to be able to speak with someone who's over in the States. Like, obviously, that's just been said. I'm in the UK, so it's a bit later for me. But I think there's a lot of common ground that it'd be interesting to have a discussion with you about because there's a lot to say. The world's a pretty hectic place at the moment, and there's quite a lot that I think it's important to chat about and these sort of things.
Amen to that. It's never ending, and in our 24/7 news cycle, it's genuinely hard to keep up with. Uh, because you get bombarded with so much going on that it feels like a year's worth of information in a day. And I'm just like, everything makes headlines because everything is going on, and it's just, it's the reason why I understand why why a lot of people are typically unplugged from it all
Mm.
because it is overwhelming. Like it's a
Massively so,
lot.
yeah. Like I think, especially in today's age, like you look at how instant news and social media is in general, really, and you think to yourself, like having all this information just sent to you all the time straight away. For a lot of people, that's going to be quite a lot. It's going to be too much even to get through, and especially like if you're working like a job that's like taking a lot out of you already, like you come home and turn your phone on
Exactly.
and suddenly like you're on social media straight away being told these headlines. Like you can see why a lot of people don't want to engage with it straight away.
Yeah. No, that's why. Like, with regards to politics, it's not so much that the general populace, at least in my opinion, is so much as apolitical. It's just because it's just they're like you said. For a lot of people, they work so much that when they come home, the last thing they want to do is consume this avalanche of information that comes out of our phones and whatnot. So maybe look at one or two things that might catch their interest if they really give a shit enough. Well, generally, most people just turn on the TV or turn on a video game or just go to sleep. You know what I mean?
But
So
exactly right.
it, yeah, so that at least that's been my experience when talking to your average Joe or whatnot. That yeah, no, they are no. It's just too much. That's why I try to when I talk about things, explain these things in such a way that anybody, even people who aren't as informed or not informed at all of like the full context surrounding an issue, I try to explain it to them in a way that you don't need the full context to understand the gist of what the problem is or what the topic is or this, that, and the third.
Yeah, like I've always thought that it's important to say these things, right? Because like there are things that are happening like in the world, and there's unfortunately a lot of things which are quite unpleasant and that are going to be a bit upsetting to come back to. But I suppose the structure and the honesty of how you say it is important. Like it's you look at like certain and I suppose we can name some of them, like the way that a lot of conservative media goes about their spreading their messages and stuff is like deliberately quite vitriolic because they want to have people angry and upset and not sort of thinking in a way that is the most rational, because ultimately that's how you believe it, right? Like you're not meant
Yeah,
to think of it as like a rational, sensible viewpoint. It's meant to be something that's like attached to the inner identity and like the emotional side of you. Hence the anger and vitriol that you see in a lot of places. Like I think it's important to obviously be truthful, but also to be calm and to be like honest and frank and say things in a way that like allows someone else to take the idea and think about it themselves and then maybe say it to others. Like and you you look at how a lot of especially on social media, especially on Twitter and how it is at the moment, like people post things which are just inflammatory, intentionally designed to rile people up, and there's no seemingly no consequence for it because it's been financially incentivized, supposedly. Like I don't know, I don't think there's much. I know Elon's like claimed that you can get paid per view now, but I don't think Elon
Yeah.
Musk is the most honest businessman, if I'm honest. But like there's an incentive there just to say deliberately like provocative, angry stuff to rile up your audience, to keep people hooked on what you're saying, and to solicit a reaction. So I think it's so important to maintain those principles when you talk about these things.
Yeah, and before I continue, Yamcha, if you're still in the chat, good to see you. It's been a while. It's truly. But and yes, you can get Yamcha agrees basically. Yeah, it is significantly more lucrative to be nasty online. It is. It's objectively true that there is a lot more money to be made, a lot more clout to be gained. There just being as inflammatory, vitriolic, whatever as possible. Like the accuracy of your statement takes a back seat to getting attention to your statement. You know what I mean? And that is, I think, one of the biggest problems. And unfortunately, people are very susceptible to that because, like you said, uh, anger goes a long way. Basically, you know what I mean. It's easier to be angry. It's easier, and people are a lot more attached to their anger, are a lot more quick to anger than they are to just, you know, calmly, rationally assessing this, that, and the third, looking for more research, doing their own research, looking for more context, this, that, and the third. Like, unless you are the one of the types of people that are invested in this shit, generally, you're not gonna get more than just that visceral knee jerk reaction from people when they see a headline that just as I say it just brings out the worst in people. And again, social media incentivizes that, like it rewards that, the algorithm rewards that. The social media companies have straight up come out and made it abundantly clear that we reward it. We know that it's bad for the country. We know it's for our countries, for the world, but it gets us clicks, so we don't really do anything about
it. Exactly right. Like it links back to that sort of the capitalist issue with a lot of these businesses, which is like because they're incentivized and because their entire sort of mode of operation is to make money and to increase their profits, they become so single-minded and driven on that like it clouds one's morality. It clouds like the idea of like what are we actually doing here. And like you say, like there's, if they wanted to, these companies, they could quite easily shut down a lot of the bile on these sites, but they don't want to because
they know. That's the crazy thing. We do like congressional investigations, like the one on Facebook, for example, that happened a while back. Like they admitted, like we know, they do know. They are perfectly aware of the overabundance of misinformation and that hate clicks drive more engagement, or vitriolic statements drive more engagement. They know that all the bad shit is what gives their platforms the popularity that they have. They know, and they could snap their fingers and do something about it, but they're choosing not to, and that has affected our politics, which is largely the topic that we were going to talk about. I just want to segue into that.
Exactly. Right.
So I want to ask you then, like, in what specific way do you think this social media has affected our politics?
Well, I think that if you look at a lot of the discourse and dialogue that certainly conservatives and right-wing politicians use, a lot of it has been engineered and cultivated in a manner that's very much lacking of substance, lacking of real analysis and integrity, and very much designed to either provoke a response, enrage their target audience or their voter blocks, or meant to intentionally rile up people on the opposing side to portray them later on in a certain way. So you look at how a lot of, certainly if we're going to stick with America for a second, like Republicans, lots of them use language like they claim things are woke. They try and adopt the language of high-profile media personalities. They will tweet out things which are even misleading or intentionally wrong. And a lot of things that come out from that are, for one, a less informed, less educated voter bloc who will more readily accept the next lie and the next lie after that, but also an intentional lowering of the quality of conversation, because the more you engage in this sort of surface level, bare bones analysis of politics, the worse the quality of discussion is, and the harder it is for left-wing points with more substance and with more reliance on statistics and actual objective truth and evaluation, the harder it is to actually focus the conversation on that. Like, if you're always talking about things from a very reactionary, emotional, he said, she said viewpoint, then you're going to have a lower quality of conversation, and you're not going to be able to talk about the reasons as to why things are better when they're more left-wing and why they're more objective the other way. I think that it's important to recognize that it is more conservatives who do this, or right-wing people, because there's a genuine, it's harder to sell those points when you talk about them honestly, because like who would favor defunding schools and not making kids have to pay for lunches to the point where they're in debt, and not providing accessible healthcare for people? Like, all these things are clearly quite unpopular. Like, if you look at polling, generally people want these things to be improved and to be accessible, so they can't talk about it in a way that frames it like that. So they have to instead talk about freedom of the market in schools, or we have to talk about they have to lie about LGBTQ people to try and get their voter base angry about that, or they have to claim that Democrats are all communists and socialists, so that every time they mention increasing corporate tax or trying to discuss like reforming education and healthcare and stuff, it's like their instant thought isn't, oh, let's improve our public services. They think, oh, well, if we put money into the government, then it's going to be like the USSR. Like, so it intentionally lowers the quality of conversation. It stops it from moving forward.
So that's what it put simply, social media has been used to, I wouldn't say so much as dumb down, but muddy political conversations that we could be having, or poison the well, as the saying goes. That's what it's been used for. Like, personally, I see social media as it could go either way. It could be used to inform. It could be used to enlighten, and has been in a lot of ways. But at the same time, unfortunately, like we said, due to those incentives we talked about, poisoning the well of politics, of political conversation, feeding into partisanship, and reactionary thinking is just the most. It's rewarded, encouraged, and incentivized. And in my experience, unfortunately, everyone is susceptible to it. Some more so than others, just to be clear, but everyone is susceptible to reactionary thinking, getting sucked into a popular narrative, no matter how bad it is, but because it confirms their biases and whatnot. We could obviously go all day about the many narratives on the right that they get suckered into, that they believe. Like, for example, that there's an invasion at the border. The idea that we're being invaded is absolute nonsense, but they believe it. That this invasion is here to perpetuate white genocide. They wholeheartedly believe it. Any actual scrutiny of our immigration policies, like for the fact that Biden has deported more people than even Trump did. You know what I mean? That he kept in place Trump's Title 12. I can't remember. He kept in place Trump's immigration policies. You know what I mean? Basically, people are going to get. There is no invasion. People are being deported, and when the wall is still there, and that Trump started is still there, Biden did not tear it down or anything. There's no open borders policy in America. None of that shit. Like, it doesn't take much scrutiny to find out the truth on these matters, but they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in a reactionary narrative. But then on the left, unfortunately, we got our own brand of reactionary sentiment. Even if we could argue that it's like it's coming from it's coming from a justified position, that doesn't make that doesn't make it okay. Like, for example, a while back, there was the claim that Israel was lining up Palestinians, like having them dig their own graves for them to then shoot them into the graves. There was no evidence of this. What happened, like one of the people who were rounded up, because just to be clear, it was bad what they did. They did round up people. They did strip them naked. They did blindfold them, and they did like take them to a bunch of different places. But there were no mass graves. People were not being gunned down in publicly executed ISIS style in their own self-dug graves. That's not what was happening. That's not what happened. But the narrative that it was going viral all over Twitter, from signal boosted by a lot of people who were understandably, free Palestine, ceasefire now, that type of people. Everyone got suckered into that narrative. And I'm like, I understand why you would believe that, but that doesn't make it true. To me, I'm more interested in, like, okay, whether or not it's true. I personally am long past, like, I'm not gonna pretend like I was never guilty of getting suckered into, popular narratives back in the day. But after, years of dealing with this shit, sometimes getting it wrong, and my, desire to not make an ass of myself, I've long since come to the conclusion that, maybe we need to take a step back before I have to be more responsible with my platform, more responsible as a consumer of information. And before I jump into join some narrative, let me question whether or not it's actually true. And unfortunately, that's not the case. A lot of people just, their tempers, especially the more personal the issue is to them, the higher their tempers and the less rational they become. And this, as I was saying, this is prevalent on both sides, both left, right, and center. It's everywhere. Obviously, one side more so than the other. Just want to be clear on that. One side more so than the other. But that doesn't. But it's still bad, and it's everywhere.
Yeah, but there's bad faith actors exist everywhere, right? Like social media allows people to very quickly, when social media, when it's used in a way that is, not conducive to progress and stuff, can really, it's easy to spread misinformation, right? Like if you've got a website that doesn't do enough to check what is put on there, especially when you are owned by a person who sacks half the people who were in charge of previously keeping it well administered and getting rid of all the spam and the hate and stuff, then it's easy to put something on there, doctor a few images, spread a false narrative, and get people believing it. I think, like, obviously, the sensitivity of the happenings in Palestine at the moment, like, make it trickier to, like, amongst the, like you say, like Israel doing many terrible things at the moment, and it's easier for someone to spread like one kernel of something that's been exaggerated or lied about amongst all the genuine things that have happened there. But like you say, it's I think weighted much more towards one side, but principally it's more on the right because, for one, there's less there's less truth in there to begin with, right? Like if you're coming from a conservative point of view, like it's chances are that you're
like foundationally, they pretty much have to lie about everything.
Right, exactly, right. But then also, like, I think there's an aversion to progress just inherently, like, from a word conservative, right? You're trying to keep things the same. You're trying to preserve some elements of hierarchy or social order. And traditionally, that's been things like, keeping white supremacy, gender imbalance, heterosexuality, all that sort of stuff, right? So the scientific proof that has shown that there's not much substance to any of this, that these like beliefs, has to then be met with a rejection of science, a rejection of conventional norms, which then unfortunately leads you into conspiracy, leads you into being much more susceptible to the inflammatory stuff and the false narratives. And going back to the supposed invasion of immigrants, like, it's, whereas we would look at footage of people trying to cross a border or whatever. It was like a humanitarian thing of like, well, how's this happening? What are the economic factors that have led this situation to happen? How can we help? In their mind, because they've been fed a barrage of lies about immigrants and lies about the nation and lies about the Democrat Party, they genuinely believe that President Biden is shipping in people to replace white people and just running with that.
They like literally believe that, like 100%. And yes, Yamcha, this was. I remember reading an article on this before, Yamcha, about Discord, where misinformation is extremely prevalent on Discord, but because it was treated as a chat room and not a social media site, that no one really did anything about it. It was just like, oh, it's just a private chat room. Until Discord started cracking down on misinformation, revenge porn, this, that, and the third. Like Discord actually did start cracking down on that shit. So, but they're doing far and away better than every other social media site right now. Then that's saying something. The bar is in hell right now.
Yeah, well, exactly. Exactly right. But I think as well, like because people generally like they exist on social media like more than anywhere else, right? Like they use Twitter for their news, they're chatting to Discord like just in with their friends and they're playing games, they're watching all their they're not watching TV, they're watching YouTube. Like so everything is coordinated around like a handful of not very well moderated sites with an incentive to post stuff that's going to get more views more than anything else, right? So if your whole life is coming from these places and you're already your algorithms are in place to make sure you're getting recommended stuff, like let's say you're a fan of some big right-wing media personality, like your feed very quickly is just going to be videos of I don't know, crimes happening, lies about various minorities, reactionary clips from like conservative politicians saying that like I don't know, gay people are coming to attack and stuff. Like it's just lie after lie, and your brain ends up just conditioned to hear the word LGBTQ and think of like the worst things imaginable. Hear the word immigrant and think of an invasion. Like it's almost like the people who are in these places need like some sort of therapy to like help unpack all the stuff and like a place to like deconstructing the stuff they've got built up in their mind. Like it's scary.
Have you ever heard of Pavlov? Or the Pavlovian response?
Yeah.
Ding that bell, water, the mouth starts to drool. That's basically what's happened in our politics. On all sides, but especially the right, where you ding that bell, say this certain talking point, phrase, whatever, woke, transgender, LGBT, this, that, and the third, whatever. You say the phrase, people whose mouths start to water, they start foaming at the mouth. Anger, I have to be angry at this. No thoughts considered. Like one of the things that have become a truism on the right is I'm sure you heard the kitty litter story in schools.
Yeah.
Even Joe Rogan promoted it and was called out on it because of it. It was just like, bro, what are you doing? It was fucking put simply, it was just schools kept kitty litter in their schools. I want to be clear, I'm going off memory, so if I'm recalling correctly, if I'm wrong, by all means, anybody in the audience can correct me. If I'm recalling correctly, it was because they needed places for students to use the bathroom in the event of a mass shooting. To quietly use the bathroom. If they're holed up for hours and need to pee, piss in the litter.
Yeah.
Won't make a sound. And that's what I mean. You can just look that up, the truth of the matter, because for me, my rule of thumb is the more ridiculous it sounds, the more I need to look into it. I just think that should be common sense. If something just sounds, but the problem is, the common argument is, it's probably that they expect ridiculous, like both sides, but again, especially the right, expect ridiculous shit from everyone else because they've been convinced they live in fucking bizarro world where they expect the worst and the most ridiculous shit from everyone. So they are unable to differentiate between what is normal anymore. They don't know how abnormal they fucking sound when they say that schools have kitty litter for students who identify as animals. Do you like if you say that to me or just to an average person, my thought your thought process should be, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, they have kitty litter in schools for the students who identify as animals.
Yeah, and it is
That
sad, right? Because it is sad
yeah,
because there's a genuine story there, right? Like the there are there's so much violence happening, around schools, from gun violence, from tensions within all the like stuff around it and stuff, that they're needing to have these measures in place. Like that's the story, but instead it's turned into, like you say, a scare panic, like another, oh, look what's happening because we've strayed from conservative values. Schools are happening, going down this route. And packaged into the this lie are many other lies about what schools are teaching children, and lies about like the school curriculum on a whole. Like you look at the current panic around transgender people, and like that is all based on lies. That there's no the way conservatives have portrayed education about LGBT people has been absurd, right? Like there's no, you look at the stuff that like the big accounts on the conservative side talk and what they say, and there's no truth to it. Like it's just lie after lie, the stuff you'd expect to hear from politicians in the 80s talking about gay people. But because it's so voluminous and it's just a barrage of it all the time, and it's been all Republicans has been speaking about for years now, it's just accepted as fact by so many of them. And packaged into that is the idea that like sex education is some inherently bad thing, which is obviously not the case. It's very important. It's crucial to keeping kids safe, helping them understand what consent is, helping them be able to identify how people should engage with them, right? Because it's like, if you want to stop like the worst, like the most damaging irony, and it's not even really an irony, like there's so much talk about how to protect children from like malicious adults and pedophiles and the word groomer and stuff. Having a strong sex ed program is one of the best things you can do for that, right? Keeping kids informed, helping them understand how to identify issues and stuff. And the Conservatives hate it. They're across the board. They have targeted sex ed. They've targeted any information about contraception, about the body, all of that. And you can see like Conservatives who speak about it have no clue. They don't understand it at all. And yet it's like a major political thing of like, if you mention this in a school, then you're equivalent to these people. And the consequence is LGBT people having their livelihoods targeted. Like you look at what's happened in so many Republican states, and like they can't even mention any of this stuff in school anymore because they'll get, their states are controlled by people who've bought into the lie and are now punishing anyone who is just saying basic stuff. Like it's terrifying.
What's happened is what has been popularly called the heckler's veto. So in America, I don't know how things are in the UK, but in America, all you got to do is raise some hell about shit, and everyone and their goddamn mother, like school administrators, businesses, whatever, will bend over backwards to accommodate you, to not be held liable, to not have to take a stand, to not have to be harmed in any way because of one person losing their shit over something that anybody else would tell them is just, if anyone had any sense, would tell them it's just, no, you're being ridiculous. Because for the example, with all the book bans in America going on right now, do you know how many people are responsible for the majority of the book bans in America?
I imagine a very small group of conservatives.
11 people. 11 fucking people are responsible for the majority of the book bans nationwide. They're just, all it takes is some dedicated nut jobs to throw everything out of whack, because everyone in the position of authority, at least our culture, is to capitulate to the crazy people, to the loudest, most obnoxious, most insane people out there. It's not to stand up for our administrators, for our faculty, for our coworkers and employees. If some crazy person rolls in saying you shit in their pizza, even though they shit in the pizza, well, guess who got to make them a new pizza, and they'll get it for free.
Mm.
Like it's like, wait, what? I didn't do that. Like, no, you did, and that person might also like get actually suspended or fired because some crazy person rolled in and just flat out fucking lied about them.
Well,
You know what
exactly.
I mean? That's how it is in America.
It's a good analogy actually, because I think it goes back to that the customer's always right, like the sort of very capitalist element of like we're here to make money, even if things are not very fair for people actually like responsible for the shop we're running or the restaurant serving food. The customer's the one who's giving us money, so they're the person we're going to prioritize. And when you introduce this like market-esque way of running things, a marketplace into schools, into healthcare, into all these things, the voice of loud conservatives and loud reactionary evangelical types who like think that gay people are sinners and take that attitude into everything concerning schools and want books banned, their voices get treated as just another customer rather than like an incorrect position, like you say. I think in the UK, like because we're not as we're closer to like a social democracy than we are American style capitalism. So it's not quite as like devastating in terms of like we're not like states. We don't have separate governments able to say certain, like we have uniform rules like across the board, right? But we're still a country governed by conservatives, living in a capitalist world, having free market policies and austerity placed upon us in different sectors, and so you still see an element of that, an element of that conservative reactionary presence manifesting itself across our sectors. Like there was a controversy in the news recently. I really stressed the controversy. Someone some train company painted some like pride flags on like one of their station terminals, or like on a station, and it's literally just like some rainbow flags as you walk through the train station. And there's people, supposedly, like if you believe the media's portrayal of it, like supposedly there's like a big like, oh, I can't believe this is happening, how dare they put this in front of us. And you look at the grand total of people who are actually complaining about this, and it's a minuscule number. Millions of people use this train station every year, and it's like you say, like 5 or 10 people you've actually been like so mortified that they could be exposed to this. And the correct response is to say, well, ultimately you're upset about a flag that just means that like LGBT people should be supported, which is just like it's just a thing, right? LGBT people are same as anyone else, deserving of an equal life, and the flag just shows that. And instead it's like the coverage bends over backwards to accommodate these people, to treat them like they're like they're a customer complaining about a pizza, and not a person with a deluded, incorrect viewpoint that ultimately should be told, like, get over yourself. Like, ultimately, this is going to happen. It's life. You need to move on. And
that fear, that reticence to just tell the people who are wrong that they're wrong is the problem. You know what I mean? Like the media doesn't seem to want to do it. People in charge don't seem to want to do it. No one wants to just we the workers, like if you're an employee for a restaurant and whatnot, we're not allowed to do it. We can't tell the people who are wrong that they're wrong. Like, you're just sorry, dude. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're wrong, and if you have a problem with this, you can leave. We can't do that, and no one in charge wants to do that. Everything is structured around bending over backwards. If that motherfucker says it smells like shit in here, even though I just sprayed some fucking aerosol, well, I guess I gotta spray more aerosol. I guess I gotta get this guy a free meal. I guess it does smell like shit in here. Like we have to bend reality to the warped delusions of a crazy person. And again, it's always like, and the media is definitely guilty of this, of blowing it out of proportion. Who and how many people are responsible for this shit. Who, like, these types like to think that they represent the majority, but like I said, with the majority of the book bans, it's only 11 fucking people.
Mm.
That's like, if everyone would just look at these 11 people in the country of 300 plus million, look at these 11 people and tell them to pound sand, we have a lot less problems.
Exactly. Like I think as well, like it's an intentional tactic of the people involved in this to blow themselves up to be much bigger than they actually are. Like I envision like when a snake extends itself out and like makes itself appear massive so that like a bigger predator won't try and eat it. Like it's the same sort of thing. They inflate their numbers intentionally. They try and make themselves seem like you say, the majority, because if they don't, then you look at it and it's just 11 people crying about nothing, crying about like some kids book where like I don't know like someone's got two dads. Like where's the issue? There's nothing there at all that's an issue. It only exists in the fantasy land that these people have constructed for themselves, where all the incorrect things they believe about LGBTQ people is true. And if they sat down away from all this stuff and they were like almost detoxified from the stuff they'd been consuming, if they sat down and were asked what is the issue with some of the stuff they've been asked to, they've been complaining about, they wouldn't be able to find it. Like there's no way that these people, if they were removed from it, would, like most of them would genuinely just fall away from it if it was able to be deconstructed.
Yeah, no, it's because it's pure delusion. It's genuine delusion. So when challenged on it, yeah, they always fall apart when someone actually challenges them. In media or otherwise, when someone actually bothers to challenge them on what they're claiming is happening, they always get these fall apart or be revealed to be the charlatans that they are. But our culture, unfortunately, at least in America for sure, just has no interest in dealing with its charlatans. That's why there's so fucking many, especially in politics. We just don't deal with our charlatans. That's why a supreme charlatan like Trump, which we can now talk about the 2024 election, it has a shot at becoming the president of the United States of fucking America. When you look at his track record, the things he said and done, anybody would. If I ever met someone, I wouldn't hire someone like Trump. I wouldn't want to work with someone like him.
Awful man.
Awful person. If I were a businessman and someone said one of the Trumps was wanted to do business with me, I would laugh him out the room. But no, apparently because of how our country's refusal to deal with its charlatans, I have to take a charlatan seriously.
Exactly. Like he's a perfect example of how if you've got money, you can just do what you want, right? Like because he, like you say, constantly, he's a bad businessman. He's obviously a bad person. He's terrible at what he does. Like in court every other week for doing really heinous things. Just atrocious on every level. Like he's not fit to be someone who's meant to be representing one of the biggest economies on the planet, right? And yet here he is polling quite well. It's not out of possibility that he could be president again by the beginning of next year, right? And it's like I think goes to show that for me at least, like the way the market is, the way the economy is organized at the moment, where like money is just enough to do what you want, like, and people have to just take you seriously because you're a billionaire or supposedly a billionaire. Like it's it's just not a healthy way to run a country, right? Like we didn't talk about Democrats as well, because like there's plenty of things that they need to sort themselves out on. But for me, Trump is just such a encapsulation of how the capitalist market is just like really not very good for producing stable democracies and for helping a society move forward. Like you've got the level of just inanity at having this person and the Republican Party at large, right? Because like if you look at like the numbers, they consistently do not have the majority of the support. They're unpopular on the things they pledge. They don't. Even they've won one popular vote this century, right? The only person to win the popular vote was George W. Bush, and that was after the September 11th attacks, right? So like there's obviously like a bit of a background on why that's happened. Only one who's won it is him. Every other time they've lost. they don't poll well for any like individual issues. Like no one wants the things they want, and yet here we are having to potentially
we have to take them seriously. Here we are, have to take them seriously. It's I swear, like I love the analogies I keep coming up with here on the fly. It's just imagine you're running a nice little business. I don't know, whatever, mom and pop shop, whatever, and somebody comes in and tells you they got a better way to run the business. And one of the first ideas is burn the whole building down and collect on the insurance. Again, normally I would just laugh that person out the room and tell them, no, get out. You're fucking crazy. Get out of here. But in our politics, that same type of thinking of just fuck our government over, shut it down, sit on our hands and do nothing, because if by doing something you don't make the Democrats look good, this, that, and the third, all of that is taken 100% seriously as serious government policy, and we have to respect it. It's nonsense.
It is just utter garbage, isn't it? Like, and I think, and it's interesting you said about shutting the government down, because like I was reading about the it's called Project 2025. You've probably heard of it. Like, it's this really this scary document where they're like planning out what they're going to do and stuff. And like, there's so many things which are disgusting about it. But one of the things that sticks out, which points to not only like obviously an ideological distaste, like it's a terrible thing to do like to people, but the incompetence of trying to shut down every state agency and replacing all the infrastructure of the country with like president-led stuff, like is such a disaster of like organization and economic mess. You're going to have so much chaos. Like, the country will shut down, right? Like, and yet this is what they're planning to put in place, like as soon as next year if they win. So like it's not only are they bad in terms of their ideology, but in terms of just people to run and operate functioning societies, they're just not good at what they do. And we see similar in the UK, like, because while we don't quite have the same the same level of chicanery as Trump and stuff, we still have our fair share of like ridiculousness. We've got we're on our 5th Conservative Prime Minister, and Rishi Sunak's not exactly polling well. I think because the Conservatives have been in charge for so long now in the UK, our next elections we're probably going to see them lose quite badly, which is good in some respects, but like there are a whole host of issues with the opposition, with the Labour Party in our country. But that's another topic. We've got so many Conservatives in government who have little to no idea of what they're doing. They've run education. Our schools are underfunded. We had a bit of controversy at the start of the school academic year because like it turned out that many of our buildings had unsafe concrete in them. They weren't given the funding program that was in place to rebuild these schools and help like return them back to being safe was canned by the Conservatives because they cut it as part of a budget cut. Now the schools are falling apart. Now many of them are unsafe, just left up to them. Lots of schools aren't heated properly. Our healthcare is not funded properly. That's falling apart. Our transport is all privatized. The trains now don't run on time if they run at all. Like on every level, these guys can't operate and run they can't run anything properly. Like, and yet, expect to take them seriously.
Go ahead. I was going to say, exactly. We're supposed to take them seriously, despite like, for me, it's like I would think the common sense thing to be is just like look at the results of your actions. Like, because let's say, for the sake of argument, we do have to take them seriously, at least at first. Give them a chance to do this, that, and the third, and then we look back and see what they've done and what it's resulted in. Their track records are so fucking abysmal. Everything is made objectively worse everywhere, at every level, in every sector, to the point that now we should be able to confidently say, "Yeah, no, we're never doing that again." This is terrible. So we're going to stop doing that now. But that's not how things work. And I wonder about that because it's like, on the one, some people say to me likely that what I'm suggesting is less democratic because in a democracy, people should be able to vote for people to fuck them over. Sure. But at a certain point, I'd like to think we should be able to draw a line and say, hey, this thing was made objectively worse by doing this thing. Maybe
Yeah,
not. Maybe let's that is not allowed anymore, no matter who's in charge. We're just if say someone suggested set our forests on fire, um, because we I don't know, it's good for the environment, and we determined by every objective measure that it wasn't, and we made everything worse. It should be thusly illegal or banned or whatever for anybody, regardless of party, to be able to do that again. But unfortunately,
exactly.
that's not the case. That's why, in the case of America, we go back and forth. Like for a more an actual example, like the Iran deal, the Obama got us in it to stop Iran's nuclear proliferation, um, and then Trump comes in and completely dismantles it. And now Biden, would have, I'm sure, would have liked to, get back in an Iran deal, but Iran is like, no, we can't trust America to keep its word. Y'all, America is basically schizophrenic. Once bipolar, the one second y'all say this, but then you lose. That party loses. Now this party's in, and now you've gone back on every agreement we set up. So yeah, no, fuck you guys. Or my favorite quote after Biden got elected, he said America was back, and I think it was the Chancellor of Germany. Can't remember. I think it was Angela Merkel was her name.
Yeah,
I think it was her who said, "But for how long?"
yeah,
That right there has haunted me. That statement is so fucking true that the world, like, you cannot rely on America to be consistent because we can go from all kinds of great deals and arrangements to burn everything down in 4 years. We can set up an agreement that's supposed to last for 50 years, and in the next election, 4 years later, completely undo a 50-year long agreement because the new guy fucking felt like it.
yeah. It's absurd. Like, and I think, like you say, like there should be disqualifying, disqualifying features. Like if you've done X, Y, Z, then you can't run for office. Like imagine if I, is another one. Imagine if I suggested like putting cement into my bread mixture. Like that would mean that like you're not on the board anymore. You're not coming near this company. Get lost. But
Get lost.
like it's the same thing. Like if you run things so badly, like you shouldn't be able to stand for office. If you're literally in court because you've led an insurrection, if you've told your supporters to go and like bring zip ties and try and like capture members of government, like how on earth are you allowed to stay in the election? It's so just, it's not how a functioning democracy can run. And I think it's telling that in this election coming up, the guy that Biden's running against wants to basically shut it down. Like they've already like in Republican states, they have terrible voter ID laws, and they've got they try and shut down democracy wherever they can because they know that the stuff that they're like planning to do is not popular and is not going to be well received, right? So they're putting steps in place, but on a fundamental level, like it's just, for me, the Democrats, like if they're serious about, if they, like Biden talks about upholding American values and keeping the vote and being the country that we knew it was and stuff, well, put your money where your mouth is. If you're serious about this, then have a look at what's going to be running against you in the next election and like do something about it. But I feel like he's afraid that like he buys into the conservative narratives about him. Like they say, oh, Biden's a communist, so he's gonna shut things down. He's gonna like shoot Trump in the head or something like it is. And Biden's then I can't be seen to go against Republicans now. I've got to just go along with all the stuff that.
I will say Obama was guilty. Obama was the one that was guilty of that. He bent over backwards to placate Republicans, only to still be shit on by Republicans no matter what. Obama bent over backwards. Biden hasn't been as bad as Obama was, but he is still coming at them with kid gloves, except for Trump specifically. He talks shit about Trump, but makes Trump seem like he's separate from the Republican Party, when it's just like, no, he is the Republican Party, and they are him. They have made it abundantly clear that from the top down at every level, they're on his side. So if you're going to trash Trump on the election field, you need to trash the whole Republican Party.
Yeah.
And like
So,
you gotta make them regret tying their wagon to Trump. And that would be my attack, anyways. If I were to ever be able to speak to them, I'll be like, look, man, they made it. Like you got to make them regret it. You got to make Trump's brand poisonous to independent voters to the point that Republicans get away from him. But the problem is, Republicans, uh, I think it's like one of two things. One, they are either uh too scared of their own base to do what's good for them, like abandoning Trump and maybe trying to run on with somebody else on something else, or two, they've just given up as a party. They've given up on winning anyone other than Trump voters over. They've given up entirely. Like it's not even a fear of their base anymore. They just gave up. Trump is the party. Whatever direction Trump wants to go, the direction they'll go. Whatever Trump says is God is law, as if he was God. Like they've given up. Like fuck independent voters, fuck liberals. We're just whatever. We are the Trump party, and that's all we'll ever be. And that to me is, and that's the one I'm thinking it's both, but mostly that, and that it is genuinely sad to me. They're not even trying to be anything other than Trump bitches.
I think there's like we said a minute ago, like because their policies are so bad, and you look at who were running as like their candidate before Trump, like Mitt Romney, never going to beat Obama, John McCain, never going to beat Obama, Bush couldn't even beat Al Gore. Like the only one he beat was John Kerry, who not exactly right. Even Hillary Clinton, for all her faults, still managed to get more votes than Trump, who was the popular candidate. Like so, as a whole, the Republican brand and like their politics are not popular and really toxic. So in some ways, I think they're forced to stick with Trump, who I imagine many of them can't stand, because he's the one who has kept them like as a relevant force against the Democrats. Like if they didn't have that fire to like keep them going, then they'd probably like when all those polls were coming out about in 2016 of Clinton supposedly like winning Florida and winning all these like swing states and potentially even some there was even talk of Texas flipping blue, right? Like they she might have done that had they decided to run like Chris Christie or Ted Cruz as Republican leader, because they are bad and they're also associated as like mainstream Republican, like some of the ones who just genuinely don't care. Trump has obviously he's still the same. He's a billionaire. He does not care about anyone but himself. He's terrible, but he has a much better image and he's able to sell himself as like the people, obviously not the people's choice, but like the alternative to the one who's going to fix things and stuff. And it is a bit like a cult, but he has a better image. Like they're forced to stick with him a little bit. I think as well, like they they know like they have to, because they're losing, that most young people do not like Republicans. Wouldn't say they like Democrats at the moment either, but they, Republicans like have lost there's no unless they, part of the reason they want this project coming in is because they know that they're not gonna, if things keep going how they are, no one under a certain age is gonna vote Republican. Like
if things like, let's say best case scenario, good to see you, Dream Master. Best case scenario, Biden wins, and by a good margin, and Democrats get a majority in the House and Senate. I think the Republican Party is, like, my prediction a while back was basically that the Republican Party was going to become an exclusively regional party. Like they are only going to be relevant where they already have and have been entrenched for decades, like Texas, maybe Texas, but definitely places like Missouri, Louisiana, Alabama.
South, right?
Places where they've had a stranglehold for decades. That's where they'll never see the federal government ever again. That's my prediction. Like the federal, without Trump, the federal government is lost to them. Certain states, could go either way, but some states will definitely remain theirs. But without Trump, the federal government is completely lost to them, and I think they know that.
Mm. And they're stuck with him. And like, if you look at like, I think so many senior Republicans can't stand Trump. Like you look at build up to 2016, they went out against him. You've got loads of people saying like this guy's a disgrace, can't be doing it. And then when Trump was their only ticket to the White House and back to power again, you see like Ted Cruz doing phone ups for him, like taking calls saying you vote, if you're a Republican, vote Trump, like vote for us. And then 2020 like
keep going.
2020 comes, like Trump's gone. He's back. He's in trouble because obviously he's led an insurrection. He's clearly violated many laws whilst he's been in office. And suddenly they're saying we're going to move on from Trump. He's toxic now. You can't have him. And that lasts only as long as 2024. Now he's the only person who's going to be. I think Nikki Haley is still trying to hang around, but there's no way.
Which is surprising, by the way. She's not going to beat him, but it's surprising that she hasn't given up yet.
Like it's ridiculous, right? And now they know that Trump's their guy again. Like they're gonna just like they did before, fall into line because it's the only way they can cling to any form of power. And to me, the ease of which you should be able to beat Trump and beat Republicans is huge, right? Like they are objectively awful, and there are so many things. Like what annoys me is because the Republicans are so bad, they're such an awful party, and the Democrats are. Just by virtue of not being them better, like I forget, I can't get on board with the idea that both sides are the same because one side is
no. I will never. Yeah, me neither. I will never say they're the same. Democrats got problems, but they to even that's why every time I've talked to like your average Joe, who generally is saying, "Oh, both parties are the same," I am so fast to correct them.
Because like you look at like state by state, like you look at blue states, and they're like I was looking in was it Michigan or Massachusetts, where like they're putting in place things like guaranteeing free school meals for kids, and they're improving labor rights for workers and stuff, and they're making recently they what was it? They ended they've ended some climate, like they've stopped drilling somewhere. Like there are things that are happening at ground level. Which are fantastic. And we'll talk about what Biden's doing wrong in a moment. But on the ground, in blue states, things are, preposterously better than in red states, where like you look at the laws being passed and it's like women can't wear certain clothing in the house because it is unchristian. Or what was the other one I saw in Florida, where it's 16-year-olds are now able to work 8-hour work full adult shifts.
Child labor is back, baby.
Like it's just like there's no comparison. Like it's just fundamentally your life is better if you live in a state that Democrats run compared to Republicans. So that should be like the thing the Democrats are pushing hard. Like if you let like it's better to be in a blue state than a red state. Vote blue. But unfortunately, and this is something Democrats like need to improve on. Like there's so many things that, like, for one, Biden, I feel, I know he's a die-in-the-wall sort of old era liberal. He's been around in politics for ages. He's very much like by the book and doesn't want to rock the boat. And I feel like given how Republicans are acting, their Supreme Court, the two last judges who have been appointed to the Supreme Court are awful. Clarence Thomas needs investigating, needs booting off the court, to be honest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They need to. There's so many things could.
The problem with that, and this is why I'm sorry for interrupting. There are two things. Yeah, there are two things. At the state level, the Democratic Party is basically fucking awesome. At the state level, the Democratic Party is great. It's the federal level where they have a problem because it's like a whole different culture at the federal level, and more often than not, at the federal level, the Republicans have undue influence. Like as it stands right now, for example, you know what I mean? It's a split Senate, so all the Republicans have to do is peel off one or two Democrats, and like Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema, and bada bing, bada boom, they get what they want. You know what I mean? Fucking at the federal level, the Democratic Party, yeah, is lacking sorely. They could be a bit harder, but at the same time, it's a much messier game than at the state level. It's I don't know how to explain it. People out there better than I can. But if there's one thing I know for sure, is that state level Democrats versus federal level Democrats are like two entirely different parties.
Mm. And like, yeah, I try and be pragmatic. Like, I'm not. I know that you're not gonna instantly replace all the Is it 50? Is it exactly 50-50 Democrat Republican in the Senate
It's
at the moment?
it's 50-50, yeah.
Yeah, like I know you're not going to replace all 50 of them with like more progressive, politicians who are going to like actively put in place the things that are quite urgently needed and stuff. Like, but to me, desperate times, especially given what is on the cards in the Republican Party at the moment, call for they need like a kick up the bum almost. Like, we need like just people to basically shake them and say, like, look what's at stake. Like, these guys basically want to end democracy, and you're acting like it's, I don't know, mid Obama, like 2012, when like ultimately things are a bit
like business as usual.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I think which is really hurting Democrats at the moment is the actions of Israel, which Biden administration is supporting, which I think it's like, again, like, I'm not oblivious to why Israel is America's ally, like, but to me, as someone who is obviously fairly left wing, but also like critical of American foreign policy, like, I think there's lots of people my age and younger who are looking at what's happening in Palestine and are rightfully disgusted, and seeing Biden and his administration sort of toe the line of like Netanyahu and Israel, and
here's the thing about that, and I'm glad we're here talking about that topic. And this will have to be the last topic,
yeah,
before we wrap up, but this is a big one worth talking about. On the one hand, yeah, publicly at least, the Biden administration has been way too friendly to Israel, even in the wake of all this shit, and have continued, funding their. I want to say arguably genocidal, because apparently there's a lot of debate about whether it is a full on genocide or not. I don't know enough to make that determination, so I'm not going. I'm going to stick with arguably. Uh, for now, at the very least. I am not as invested in that conflict to do the research to determine, is this a actual genocide, or is that just a rhetorical trap we were sticking to? I don't know, but I will say this much: the Biden administration, on the public front, yeah, way too friendly with Israel, especially given Netanyahu and his and just the Israeli far right administration has basically been telling the Biden administration, to fuck off. Um, in on the back end, like behind the scenes, Biden's administration has been trying to get them to stop. But again, Israel, which has gotten way too comfortable with its standing with America, and also, contrary to what a lot of people know, has been very vocal in its support for like Trump, and like wanting the Democrats all out and wanting the Republicans in, because they know Republicans won't try to temper their behavior in any way, shape, or form. In fact, will full-throatedly support them.
Mm.
The Israel administration has just like been ridiculous. Like, every report has shown that Israel has told Biden to fuck off in one way or another. Has told them, no, we're not going to stop. We don't care what you say. We don't care what you. It ain't just America. It's like every country trying to get Israel to stop, but Israel's telling everyone to fuck off, because it's had decades long approval from every country in the world for so long that they think they can just keep doing what they're doing without consequence. And I don't expect Biden or any Democrat really, and especially not the Republicans, to be the ones to finally tell Israel to punish Israel. To finally be like, no, you're not getting shit from us. And not only you're not getting shit from us, We're going to blockade you. We're going to stop you. We're going to punish you for what you're doing. I don't expect this administration or any other Democrat who if they were in this position to have done to have gone as far as many people would have been wishing that the Democrats would go. That said, I do concede that they could be doing more, like to stop them. They're at the very least not arming them. At the very least, not sending them money. At the very least, we ain't got to go full on blockades. We ain't got to do a bunch of crazy shit that we have the authority to do. But at the very least, we could have stopped. We didn't have to fund them. We didn't have to send them arms. That much I will concede. I wish they'd have done, but I don't expect something that's been decades in the making to just suddenly be snapped, and undone uh, by one administration, especially an administration that doesn't even have full control of the House and Senate, has a split Senate and doesn't even have the House. I don't expect that.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like we were talking about the sort of frameworks of the country and how the Democrats are a multi-tiered party that has to contend with the House, and the higher ups are vastly different to the state level, and the frustration that people within the Democrat Party as well. Like you look at several House caucuses across the US have tried to put things, tried to vote on and say we want a ceasefire, we want a pause in violence, we want all of this, and is met with nothing from the higher ups because of that dissonance between the two. And it is frustrating because it's disgraceful what's happening in Palestine at the moment, and it needs to stop. And there's that. I think we're having the same thing in the UK. We're right there with the US, in continuing funding all this, and it's disgraceful. But as you said, the idea that we can't, Democrats can do one, Republicans, it's almost like what is coming is going to be so much worse for the Middle East in terms of peace if we let Republicans just take if Biden is portrayed as which he justifiably is, he's not doing enough, but to act as though the Democrats are now a party of war abroad and stuff, when the Republicans are quite literally the party that
bloodthirsty.
Exactly. You look at what the average Republican senator wants to nuke Iran, and that's not even an exaggeration. They're eager.
That's not even exaggeration.
It's they are so not only are they all funded by defense contractors, they're all so eager for continued destruction of the Middle East and in the interest of oil and stuff. And yes, the Democrats have a massive problem with that too. Clearly Biden's administration have not done enough. But the idea that things are going to get any better by abandoning the electoral process to Republicans who are literally blueprinting and writing up their plans to deconstruct American civil liberties and further the interests of the American war machine abroad, there's no way. To me, there's got to be that ability to, justifiably criticize the Biden administration, because they've clearly they're not acting in the interest of of world peace, of the Palestinian people who are being killed indiscriminately at the moment, they're not doing enough to stop Republicans in the US. You look at how Biden's reacted to the Texas Governor Abbott saying they've sort of reacted in a way that has shown they're not quite on the same level as what people want at the moment and stuff. But that's still light years ahead of the hellscape that Trump and Republicans are planning. I sort of think you look at what's happened to Florida with all the stuff that's happening in their state. Imagine that on a nationwide level, and that's what that's what we've got to stop, right? That's what's got to be stopped.
I always say to people, it's just if you want a prime example of what our country would look like if Republicans right and truly had their way, I say look at Texas. Nothing fucking works in Texas. When there's extreme heat, the power grid shuts the fuck off. When it's extreme cold, the power grid shuts off. Basic things that you would expect to be the norm to work just doesn't work in Texas because the state government has separated themselves from the federal government, the rest of the nation, like logistically and functionally separated themselves, and then have the audacity to have no interest in actually running anything. So nothing works in Texas. Everything is shit. The
Mm.
roads are shit. The you're getting price gouged for your water bill, your electric bill. There's no income tax, so your taxes are high as shit. Um, but like everything's more expensive. Like it's bad. Texas is a blueprint of what a country, what Republicans can and will do when they have their way. They will break everything. They will
Yeah.
just break everything and then blame you to tell you, basically blame you and just tell you to go fuck yourself when you ask them to fix it. Because something as simple, something as basic as the power grid being weatherized for extreme weather conditions, something so common sense they have not done in I don't know how long, and they have no interest in doing it. Now imagine that nationwide, our power grids no longer being maintained. That would be a fucking catastrophe.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean when never mind the social cultural shit that they do. Never mind all that. Just from a governmental like nationwide standpoint of like how we want our nation to function. I don't want to live like that. I don't want when I live in North Carolina, when a hurricane comes for our power grid, it hasn't been fortified or weatherized to just for everyone in my entire town to be without power for weeks on end. Fuck that noise. It doesn't have to be that way. And for all the Democratic Party's flaws, especially even now with Israel Palestine conflict, I'm still voting Democrat down ticket, no questions asked, because as I've said before on Twitter, I'll say it again, I'll say it here. Even if we can't save everybody, we have a responsibility to at least save ourselves. We have a responsibility to at least protect our own country, our own fellow citizens from the nightmare that Republicans want to inflict on us.
Mm. Well, exactly, right? Like, I think, if even if you're coming at this from like just focusing on the happenings in the Middle East, like Israel, Palestine, we want to stop the death and violence happening. We are far, far more likely to be able to stop it under the Democrat presidency than we are under a Republican presidency. Like, I think there's no, people have been protesting. I've been on marches. Like, people have been marching against the war. It's not even like the violence that Israel's inflicting. Republicans want to crack down on protests to the point that people are going to be, more so than we're seeing now, arrested and tried and convicted for protesting this sort of stuff. Like, it's light in daylight. There's no.
Speaking of protesting, I've said this as well. Yeah, I don't know if people know this, but the Trump administration, if they win and whatnot, have made it abundantly clear they're going to criminalize protests. They're going to flat out criminalize protests entirely.
100%.
It will get bad. If people think because at least under Democrats, you can protest the Democrats. Yeah, they might be smarmy and annoying in their responses towards all the protests, but you're not going to get locked up for it unless, of course, you like start a riot. But that's that's neither here nor there. Under Republican leadership, in their coming plan, they're not going to allow any counter protest to what they're doing. They're not going to allow it. They're going to do what Trump did during the BLM protests during what was it 2019 after George Floyd was murdered.
No, 2020. So that was pandemic. 2020.
No, it was around 2020. They had the Department of Homeland Security out there rounding people up in unmarked fucking vans. Like, it was, I don't know if people remember that. It was fucking insane what they were doing.
Mm.
They were and they're gonna crank that up to a fucking 1,000 if Trump wins again. They stated as such.
Exactly. Like, there's so many things wrong with Biden's administration. Absolutely should be opposed. Got to be mindful of how Biden acts and how his government acts. It's better than fascism, which is what Republicans are gonna bring if they get the chance. Like, it's
Oh yeah,
it's as clear
they,
as that.
they they learned from the mistakes of the previous administration, and they have made it abundantly clear. Because one of the things, and this is the last thing I'll mention,
Yeah.
is that I want people to know. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but during the Trump administration, he and his people, I think it was Ronald McDaniel, the either current or former RNC chair, whatever, they wrote up a plan about purging the government of anyone insufficiently loyal to Trump. And they tried that. They didn't succeed, but they tried. They did oust some people and replace them with Trump loyalists. They did. In our military, in the federal government, they were trying. They didn't fully succeed, but they definitely tried. That's why during the January 6th insurrection, the response time there was no response from the federal government for as long as there was, because this isn't a conspiracy. This is how it really played out. The Trump's acting I think it was Department of National Security. I can't remember the specific department. Whoever was supposed to deploy the National Guard was a Trump loyalist, and he did not deploy the National Guard. I think it was Nancy Pelosi or Mike Pence or one of them who had basically had to call somebody to get them out there, to get to get a response from the federal government, because all the people that could have shut that shit down within 30 fucking minutes didn't show up because they weren't ordered to.
Yeah.
They were ordered to stand by and watch out for BLM and Antifa. That's what they were ordered to do. So they didn't do anything. And that's why things got as bad as it got. Because again, the military could have easily wiped the floor with those people and kept that shit in 30 minutes. It never should have got as bad as it got.
Yeah.
But because of the Trump administration deliberately sabotaging uh, any kind of response from the federal government, that's why January 6th got as bad as it got. Now, I want you to imagine that, and they win again. In worst case scenario, they get to both the House and the Senate. They're going to clean fucking house. Anyone insufficiently loyal to Trump is gone. Our government is going to be stripped bare and replaced by nothing but the Stephen Millers, those straight up white nationalists, full throated Trump loyalists.
100%.
And there's no going back after that happens. That's what scares me more than anything. Because, for example, the military is, I don't know if you know, I'm a prior Marine. The military is apolitical.
Yeah.
Always has been. That's the idea, is that we don't serve any particular party. We serve the country and the country's interests. For better or worse, we serve the country's interests. Trump ordered the military to gun down the protesters during, I think it was 2020, during those protests. He directly ordered them to gun them down. Stephen Miller was telling him that Trump needed to do that. But fortunately, General Mark Milley told Stephen Miller, and I quote, "Shut the fuck up. None of that is happening." He straight up told, if General, and Trump hates General Mark Milley. The Republicans and right wing media hate General Mark Milley. Because he stood up to Trump, because he stood up to Trump's administration. If Trump wins again, there will be no more General Mark Milleys. They're all anyone like him will be gone. They will be forced into early retirement, and they will be replaced by absolute fucking psychopaths.
Yeah.
And when the order comes to gun down protesters, those psychopaths are going to say, "Yes, sir." And that's what fucking terrifies me.
100%. It should terrify the world, because it's got global ramifications, right? Like, you let these guys take control of the world's dominant Western economy, right? Biggest in the world.
Yeah.
And what happens to the health of the planet? What happens to all the plans to cut carbon footprint, like we need to put in place quite urgently, led by people who don't even believe in climate change? Like it's a scary thought, and ultimately, it's got to be stopped. They've got to be stopped.
Oh yeah. So with all that bleakness said, let's talk. Let's wrap up with something a little more positive. You tell me in the audience what you got going on going forward.
Well, that's a very kind thing to ask. So I've been trying to. I'm into athletics at the moment, trying to just get my times down. 5 and 10 kilometers at the moment. Nothing special. I'm not like a proper Olympian or anything, but in terms of like personal fitness and keeping your mind active and fresh, I think it's so important, especially with all the stuff happening in the world, to make sure that you got stuff that you can aim towards. So I set my personal best time this weekend in the 5K. I was very happy with that. Bit tired, the legs a bit sore at the moment, but it comes with it, right? Like if you're willing to work hard and you're willing to put in effort, you're going to get rewards, and one of the rewards is the time's coming down. And I'm studying at the moment, so like I've got academic stuff on the horizon. Really enjoying that, and it keeps me sharp, keeps my mind engaged in what's going on. So, thank you.
Yeah. Of course, I'm doing much the same. My goal, starting in February 1st, is to get back into amateur boxing training. Get back in school to become so I can work on becoming a psychiatrist. Right now, I'm working on my script for my review of the game I recently streamed myself playing, Baldur's Gate 3. It's coming along pretty well. I'm pretty proud of it. I'm looking forward to releasing it once it's all said and done. And yeah, as far as physical fitness, I'm going to the gym more. I'm trying to be active too because as much as I hate working out, it's really good for you. Highly to anybody watching, I highly recommend you work out at least 30 minutes a day. Is as exhausting as it is, as tiresome, and as much of a struggle it is to motivate yourself to do it. It will genuinely make your days better. It will genuinely make you feel better. Like it's just working out is great for you, and I hate that. It's not fair.
It's good for your mind. It's easily one of the best things you can do, and it can be it can be free. You don't even have to pay. You can do it in your own home.
Yeah. Seriously, 25 sit-ups, 25 squats, 25 push-ups. That's the my general at-home workout I recommend to people. Just push-ups, sit-ups, squats. And if you got jump rope, jump rope. You know what I mean? Like do stuff like that. That's a great workout right there. Do them either periodically throughout the day or work out for 30 minutes a day. Y'all don't have to go to the gym. You can work out at home for free. You just gotta, and you don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to do a handstand with one hand and do a push up that way. You know what I mean? You can just do basic ass push ups, basic ass sit ups, basic ass planks, and basic ass squats and lunges. You know what I mean? And it will make a world of difference on its own.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So with that being said, do you have any anything for me? Anything else you wanted to tell me, or is
no? Just it's been an absolute pleasure coming on. We should definitely have to do this again at some point because it's been really enjoyable just having a back and forth, like a nice chat. It's been good. I've really enjoyed it. So thanks again for inviting me on.
Of course, I would love to have you on again because this was a very pleasant, very enjoyable, and an incredibly informative conversation. And I definitely always enjoy talking to somebody like if it was in a different country that we could talk about our different perspectives on basically the same thing, and then like talk about the parallels and like maybe our version of the same thing you got going on over there. I love doing that. So yes, I'd absolutely love to have you on again.
Well, I'd be more than happy to come on again. It'd be fantastic. Anyhow,
hell yeah.
Thanks again. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. You have a great day, brother.
You too.
And to everybody watching, and to everybody watching, thank you all for coming. See y'all in the next stream. Well, no, I will not be streaming anytime until I'm done with this script and this review video. I'm trying to keep myself from getting distracted. I did this because I really like Owen, but I am trying to finish this script and then do the video and editing process, which is new, which is all new to me. But I'm not gonna put out any content until I am done with that.
Well, best of luck to you with it.
Thank you, brother. All right, take care, everybody.